The hot sun beat down on the streets of Manila, and the sound of traffic blended with the faint rhythm of a guitar. A 14-year-old boy named Rico Santos stood near a busy corner with a small speaker, a worn-out microphone, and a dream far too big for the life he lived. His shoes were old, his shirt faded, but when he opened his mouth to sing, the world around him seemed to stop. The song was "Can't Help Falling in Love" by Elvis Presley, and his voice carried that same deep, soulful tone that made millions fall in love with the king decades ago. People began gathering around him, some recording with their phones, others tossing coins into his box. Rico sang not just for the money, but for his family waiting back home in a small house with leaky ceilings and no electricity most nights. His mother worked as a street vendor, his father fixed tricycles, and Rico sang because it was the only way he could help. One afternoon, as the sky started to turn orange, a foreigner stopped to watch. He was an American music producer visiting the Philippines. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. This boy's voice sounded like Elvis himself had come back to life. The man recorded a short clip and uploaded it to his social media. Within hours, the video exploded across the internet. The Filipino Elvis, people called him. The clip was shared millions of times on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Rico didn't even have a phone to see it, but when he arrived home, neighbors were shouting his name. Reporters wanted interviews, fans wanted pictures, and everyone in the community felt proud. For the first time, Rico realized he might be more than just a boy singing for coins. He was becoming a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the poorest corners of the world, talent can shine bright. Late at night, Rico sat under the stars, holding his guitar, whispering to himself that one day, he'd sing on a big stage, maybe even in America. He didn't know it yet, but that dream was closer than he thought. A few months later, a letter arrived with a golden seal. It was from America's Got Talent. The show had seen his viral video and wanted him to audition in Los Angeles. His mother cried when she read it, holding the letter to her chest like a miracle. The whole neighborhood celebrated, people donating small amounts to help pay for his trip. Rico had never been on a plane before. As he packed his small bag, he tucked in his father's old leather jacket, the one his dad wore while listening to Elvis tapes when Rico was a kid. The airport was overwhelming, bright lights, announcements in English, and people rushing everywhere. But when he boarded the plane, he looked out the window and smiled. He was finally leaving the city that raised him, heading toward a world he had only seen on TV. Landing in Los Angeles felt like stepping onto another planet. Everything was so big, clean, and loud. A representative from the show greeted him and took him to a small motel. Rico practiced every night, singing until his voice cracked, determined to make his family proud. He missed home terribly, but every time he looked in the mirror, he imagined the lights of the AGT stage reflecting in his eyes. The day of the audition arrived. Backstage, surrounded by dancers, magicians, and singers from all over the world, Rico felt nervous. His hands trembled as he held the microphone, his heart pounding in his chest. He whispered a prayer in Tagalog, asking God to guide his voice. Then, the doors opened, and he stepped into the blinding lights of the stage. He could see Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel watching him curiously. He took a deep breath. This was it, the moment he had dreamed of since those long nights on the streets of Manila. The crowd went silent. The music started. And with that first note, Rico began to sing, ready to prove to the world that a boy from the streets could sound better than Elvis himself. The lights dimmed as Rico stepped into the center of the America's Got Talent stage. His small hands gripped the microphone tightly, and for a moment, the massive crowd, the bright cameras, and the 4 judges staring at him all seemed to fade away. The familiar melody of "Can't Help Falling in Love" began to play, and Rico closed his eyes. His voice came out soft at first, trembling slightly, then grew stronger, deeper, and smoother with every word. It wasn't just an imitation of Elvis Presley, it was pure emotion. The crowd fell silent, completely mesmerized. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his expression changing from skepticism to surprise. Heidi Klum placed her hand over her heart, whispering something to Sofia Vergara, who could barely hide her amazement. Rico sang the song as if it came from his soul. Each note carried the weight of every struggle, every dream, and every tear shed back home in Manila. When he hit the high note near the end, the audience erupted into cheers, people standing and clapping in awe. Rico smiled shyly, tears filling his eyes, but before he could say anything, Simon stood up. For a long moment, Simon said nothing, just stared at the young boy who had just silenced thousands. Then he finally spoke, his voice calm but full of emotion. "Rico," Simon said, "I've heard many people try to sing Elvis, but I have never heard anyone do it like you. You sound better than Elvis himself." The crowd screamed. Simon looked at the other judges, then turned back to the button in front of him. "This is what this show is all about," he said. Then came the moment no one expected. Simon slammed the golden buzzer. Instantly, golden confetti exploded from above, raining down on the stage. Rico dropped to his knees, overwhelmed, crying as the crowd chanted his name. Simon walked up and hugged him, telling him to never stop believing in his gift. Backstage, Rico's mother and the AGT staff were crying too, watching their boy from the streets of the Philippines take the first step toward global stardom. The internet lit up again that night. The Filipino Elvis Gets Golden Buzzer was trending in dozens of countries. Rico went to sleep that night still covered in bits of gold confetti, not believing what had just happened. Within days, Rico's name spread across the world. His Golden Buzzer audition became one of the most watched videos on YouTube, reaching millions in just 24 hours. Fans from every corner of the globe praised his talent. Elvis tribute artists reacted to his performance, calling him a reincarnation of the king. Back home, people gathered around televisions in small stores, watching the clip again and again. The small alleyways of Manila echoed with pride. Neighbors played Elvis songs all day, calling Rico their hero. His mother could barely keep up with interviews and calls from journalists. Still, despite all the sudden fame, Rico remained humble. He called his family every night, saying, "Don't worry, Mama. I'll make you proud." With fame came pressure. As he prepared for the semi-finals, Rico began to feel the weight of expectations. Everyone wanted him to outdo his first performance. Reporters followed him everywhere, asking how it felt to be compared to Elvis. Sometimes, alone in his motel room, he doubted himself. What if he couldn't sing as well again? What if the magic was gone? But each time he looked at his father's old leather jacket hanging by the door, he found strength. He decided to stay true to his roots. Instead of just copying Elvis, he wanted to bring a piece of his own culture to the AGT stage. He planned to mix Elvis rock and roll with a Filipino rhythm. On the night of the semi-finals, the theater buzzed with anticipation. When Rico appeared wearing the same jacket his father once wore, the crowd went wild. He started singing, "Jailhouse Rock," but halfway through, the beat changed. Filipino drums and modern energy turned the stage into a festival. The audience danced, the judges clapped along, and Simon grinned like a proud mentor. When the song ended, the entire crowd was on their feet. Simon said, "Rico, you're not just honoring Elvis, you're creating something new." That night, Rico advanced to the finals. But more than that, he proved to himself that he wasn't just the Filipino Elvis. He was Rico Santos, the boy from Manila who dared to dream, and made the whole world believe again. The night of the semi-finals left Rico sleepless. His performance had gone viral again, but now the stakes were even higher. He sat by the motel window, looking at the city lights of Los Angeles, thinking about home. His mother's voice over the phone reminded him to stay humble, and his father told him, "No matter what happens, son, you've already made us proud." The next morning, he went to rehearsals at the AGT studio. The competition was fierce, singers with booming voices, magicians with jaw-dropping tricks, and dancers who could move like lightning. Rico felt small among them, but every time doubt crept in, he closed his eyes and remembered the Manila streets where it all began. Those dusty corners had trained him to sing with heart, not just skill. For the semi-finals, he decided to do something no one expected. He would perform Jailhouse Rock, but with a twist. The music team helped him mix Elvis, rock and roll energy with Filipino percussion and rhythms. During rehearsal, the judges' assistants couldn't help dancing. It was electric. When showtime came, Rico stepped on stage wearing his father's old leather jacket and a sparkling belt gifted by the production crew. The lights turned blue and red, and the crowd started cheering before he even sang. The first chords hit, and Rico owned the stage. He danced, laughed, and sang with that same deep, soulful tone that made him famous, but this time it had his personality all over it. He wasn't just singing Elvis, he was reinventing him. The judges were on their feet by the halfway mark. Heidi Klum shouted, "You're a star." And Sofia Vergara smiled so hard her eyes watered. Simon sat there nodding, clearly proud. When the song ended, Rico bowed deeply as the audience roared. Simon told him, "You've taken Elvis and made him your own. That's what being an artist is about." The votes came in later that night, and Rico advanced to the grand finale. He cried again, calling his mom immediately after the show. "Mama," he said through tears, "I'm going to the finals." She cried too, telling him the entire neighborhood had stayed up all night watching and cheering. That week, newspapers called him the boy who brought Elvis back to life. But Rico didn't want to be just a tribute act, he wanted to be remembered as himself. Finals week arrived faster than he expected. The pressure was enormous, but Rico chose a song that meant something personal. "If I Can Dream," the same song Elvis sang as a message of hope and unity. Rico practiced every day until his voice cracked, pouring every emotion he had into the performance. He thought about his family, his country, and all the people who believed in him. The night of the finale, the arena was packed. The lights dimmed to almost complete darkness, and a single spotlight found Rico standing center stage. The first note escaped his lips like a prayer. His voice was deeper, more powerful, filled with everything he'd lived through, the poverty, the struggle, the hope. The orchestra swelled behind him, and every lyric felt like a message to the world. When he reached the final line, "While I can dream, please let my dream come true," the crowd erupted in a wave of emotion. Many were in tears. Simon stood up first, then the other judges, and soon the entire theater was on its feet, cheering and clapping nonstop. When the voting results were announced, time seemed to slow down. Rico held his breath, clutching the microphone. "And the winner of America's Got Talent is," the host paused for effect, "Rico Santos." The explosion of cheers drowned out everything. Rico fell to his knees again, overcome with emotion as golden confetti filled the air one last time. Simon walked up and hugged him tightly, saying, "You didn't just honor Elvis, you created your own legacy." The cameras captured his tears, his smile, and the disbelief in his eyes. The boy from the Manila streets had just become a global superstar. After the show, Rico returned home to a hero's welcome. The airport in Manila was flooded with fans, banners, and music. His story inspired millions around the world, proving that dreams can start anywhere, even on the streets. He donated part of his winnings to rebuild his old school and started a music foundation to help poor kids chase their dreams. Every time he walked on stage after that, he carried not just his voice, but the spirit of everyone who believed in him. Rico Santos didn't just sing better than Elvis, he sang for hope, for love, and for every dreamer who refused to give up.